Hi, I'm Matt.
I'm Hollizel, or Steve, as you may call me at some point during this. We're driving in what was once the Steammobile, which is now the Anonymous Mobile. But we're coming to you from Adelaide, South Australia, in the south of the state. There's a
G'day, mate.
g'day,
G'day.
mate.
Shoot.
Pronounced M than the number 8. But we thought we'd just take some time to do a little bit of a cruise around and just talk about our thoughts on the Hive blockchain, what it can do, what our experiences have been, and a whole bunch of other stuff. But I wanted to start off with talking about the NFT Showroom, which is just recently started up. So Matt was quick and dirty, but no, it was quick and clean. He didn't have his Discord messages full of swearing, unfortunately, to tell me about the NFT Showroom, which is a marketplace where artists can post their work, tokenize it, which is a novel concept for those who aren't familiar with the world of crypto, and sell digital editions of their artwork to other people. So what drew you to NFTs, Matt?
Well, I like what Agro does. He seems to hit a lot of home runs. So whatever he sort of points my direction to, points my eyes to.
Yep.
He's that's always a good tell for me that this is worth investigating. I like the concept of it being so fee-free, and it's a great new addition, I guess, to the Hive ecosystem. I bought, I don't know if you noticed, but I bought edition 8 of your Equus.
Oh, thank you.
Last
I
night.
didn't notice.
So I've got a few pieces now, like 4, I think, from memory. One of them, my first one, was Brian Imhoff, and he's writing a comic book, and it's the cover art for it.
Yep.
And I noticed that one of the other artists, Magic Monk, I think it was, bought the more expensive single edition black and white cover. Mm-hmm. I bought one of the 30 coloured versions, which I just really like the art, and I figure, hey, if this guy manages to publish things, and this thing could become a serious collector's item if his comic goes well. It's just speculating, really. And for $8, why not? It's good art.
Yeah.
And I like the idea of it's actually more people say, but is it real? And I think if we're in the crypto space, you've got to say, well, either all of it's real or none of it's real. People say, 7 years ago, people say, it's this Bitcoin rubbish. What can you buy with it though? It's not real. It's not real because you can't buy things with it. And then, Hive comes along and people go, hang on, you're wasting Bitcoin on Hive. It's like, hang on, why do you value Bitcoin now? Well, now you're spending Hive Swap on tokenized art? What are you doing? So, well, hang on, does Hive have value? Does Bitcoin have value?
Does art have value?
Does art have value? And that's a whole other car ride.
Well, it's something that I probably have thousands of opinions on, having a significant time of my life spent studying art in the traditional art world. As some of you may know, I've got a master's degree in visual art and design. Fat load of good it does me, but there's a lot of interesting art theory that sits behind digitizing and tokenizing art and that sort of thing. And we were having a conversation on Discord not too long ago, and I brought up Walter Benjamin, who was a cultural philosophist, theorist, all sorts of things, but he wrote a very important essay back in the day called The Work of Art in the Age of Mechanical Reproduction. He actually wrote it about photography, where you could reproduce an image endlessly, whereas prior to that, if you wanted to reproduce an image, you either had to use a printing press. His work was about the printing press as well, or you needed to do something along the lines of painstakingly pay people to paint copies of an image. So there's that, but when you tokenize a piece of work, you've got another element of it, because a lot of the art that's being tokenized is digital to begin with. So you've got that notion of what is the art and what is the tokenization of that art, and when you've got to digital copy of something on a blockchain, you're placing some element of trust into the artists themselves that they're not going to take this image and deploy it to another medium and essentially sell out, print copies, put them in a gallery. So I think the incentive has to be there for them to want it to be the exclusive genre or the exclusive site of where that work is going to exist.
It's an interesting point. I think for me, I bought edition number 8 of Brian's cover art and of your Equus, largely because I got the number 8 of the Steam branded silver round.
Okay. Because I was going to ask what your reasoning was. Why number 8?
Well, it's lucky in Asian countries, and I've got the 8 of the coin.
Yep.
So I grabbed that in the 2018 and the 2019. I'm not sure but I figure, well, if that's the thing that I do, I'll just grab number 8 of whatever. That can be just a me theme. And I think if the artist does, reissue that work in a different medium, I'm okay with that. Like if you want to make a big physical print or whatever, I will still always own number 8 of 30 of that. I think the artist would be silly to relist the same artwork on NFT Showroom or on some other tokenised platform, because then, obviously you're firing off all sorts of plagiarism senses where you're reselling the same thing, but also the secondary market. They've just rolled out an NFT Showroom now. The capacity that when a buyer sells on to somebody else, the original artist gets a take of that.
Yeah, and that's something that is very much missing from the traditional art world, where a collector picks up a piece from an artist, that artist dies or goes on to become extraordinarily famous, they sell that work for millions of dollars in the future, and the artist gets a whole lot of nothing as a outcome of their labours, as opposed to getting some sort of a commission from that. Yeah. I just want to pause to say that this is not what Australia normally looks like. We're not normally full of fog and mist and rain. We've just picked the perfect day for you to show you the Australian landscape in a very unique and not often seen way.
It was nicer at home, but I think we've gone up a little bit in elevation.
Yeah.
So with NFT Showroom, I think it means that residual, that coming in every time that one of your works is sold, I think that's a good way that the artist is then incentivized to not destroy the resale value of their own work. So by doing things like reissuing or getting it up on 2 different platforms and selling it as an original art piece there on 2 different competing platforms, because of that you want to Victor.
Yeah.
They're going to want to safeguard the resale value of that, because it's just about selling it. Once you've sold all the editions, that's it. You've got no more stake in it.
Correct.
Even though you're the original artist. You do want to obviously encourage people to buy future listings, but that exact piece of art, it's done and dusted. Whereas this is a great little update to say, hey, look, if you give art that's not just great and is worth buying once, but is actually people are going to be willing to buy it from the buyer, then why not? But I think the NFT Showroom, beautiful edition. Another reason for people to get themselves a Hive account, download Keychain. Once you're there, then there's other places you can go. Maybe Mazel, for example, selling his Splinterlands cards because he never really played with them. He's just got some alpha ones. But he's probably doing that, I'm guessing, because he's jumping in and checking out Crypto Brewmaster. Because he likes the homebrew, right? Because he likes the
completely different.
Exactly. So, but once you're there, you've got Keychain downloaded. Why not? See what else is going on.
Entryway into the ecosystem.
Yeah, and NFT Showroom's just another example of that. But flowing through all of these is the nature of the chain, which is there's no fees, right? As long as you've got RCs to do what you want to do, then there's no fees. The 3-second transaction time, you can't beat that. I know a lot of the bigger players have a lot more of the press, but we get noticed, right? You see on DAP Radar had a listing of which chains have the most gaming activity, and Hive's right there.
And that says
that
a
gets
lot.
noticed.
We don't have a lot of games on Hive.
But that gets noticed, right? And when other game, devs look at that and say, I've heard of these other chains, I've heard of EOS, I've heard of Ethereum. Why is there so much activity on this chain I haven't heard of? When they come and scratch the surface, they go, well, of course I want to build my game here. Where else would I want to build it?
I don't know, all of us who've been active on Steam in the past and on Hive now have been really passionate about the fact of, look at all these cryptocurrencies in the top 100 on CoinMarketCap or CoinGecko or whatever tracking app you're using. And you look at the stuff and you genuinely sit there and say, I don't know what you do when you look at a crypto ticker. I don't know what you're for. And then I look at Hive and I go, I know what that's for. I know all the brilliant things you can do with that and all the unopened doors we have with Hive as well. And it just confuses me that not more people know about this.
Well, it's promiseware, and I guess there's a level of availability with Hive where I guess people don't want to buy into something as an investor, knowing that others can get it just by blogging. They say, I don't really want, someone can get this stuff just by blogging. Why would I pay for it? But I think long term, what you're failing then to realise is the currency is valuable because people are using it
and exchanging it. Yeah,
and exchanging it. Right. That's the network effect makes the currency valuable. And if we're in a sort of a distribution phase with Hive, then great. I mean, if there's people all over the world, which is what we're seeing now, literally people all over the world are accumulating, small, medium, large amounts of Hive, and then transacting with it. Well, that's what a currency is for. And the closer you act to where a currency should be acting, which is being useful for a whole lot of people, then great. Distribution is one of the bigger problems, because if there were 3 people with Hive, those people would probably just transact with each other with, US dollars instead.
And the beauty of it is as well is that the distribution is done by a consensus ultimately. There's ongoing debates about whether or not it's the right model of consensus and whether or not we should be rewarding evergreen content and all that sort of thing. I think what NFT Showroom has done is it's given that opportunity for that artwork to be something tokenized on a blockchain, which can then be evergreen for its creator through its future transactions and trades.
Yeah, and something that struck me the other day, just thinking about NFT Showroom, was with a piece of art, its provenance is also, I guess, part of its story, which is what you're buying. So if you were to buy a piece of art that was hanging in a hall in Europe somewhere, and then the Nazis came through and confiscated it, and then it was recovered however many years later, and you've got all of this story about its past, and it's this exact print, this exact version, this exact piece, then you're buying the story as well as you're buying the art, right? And I can see that so much in NFT Showroom. The token is there, right? So if and this is really unlikely to happen, but if I came to be known as somebody who was good at speculating on valuable art pieces, where I've got a high, say, a percentage where, whenever I on-sell something, I always get at least 50% more than what I bought it for, or if I've, on average, I've made a 75% markup, for example. All of this is trackable. If I start to develop a reputation as being somebody who's good at having an eye for what is good, then people are more likely to want to buy work. The non-fungible tokens then become completely non-fungible. In number 8, did Matt Clark previously own this? He's got a good record.
Number 8 is now part of its story.
It's part of its story, right? So it's not just the artwork itself; it's the token. And I'm seeing that same thinking with Splinterlands cards, where Goldmatter said the other day how he's got these gold alpha lightning dragons that he hasn't used. He's making sure he doesn't use them in battle because they're new in box. And I think Jacek W was saying, yep, I can confirm, I look at his card and I can see that it's got no battle history. Now maybe they're going to be really rare, valuable collector's items because they're alpha cards that have never been played. Maybe no one's going to care.
Yeah, and I think the other interesting thing that you brought up there was around if you become recognised as a collector of things, where I watched an interesting documentary a couple of nights ago around a collector of photography. Can't remember his name. But he started collecting photographs as a young man. This was in the early days of photography. It was triggered by an image that he saw in the front window of a salon or a saloon in Europe somewhere. He purchased this daguerreotype of a nice looking young girl, added it to his collection as that's an interesting scientific curiosity, this photography thing, because at the time it was. He continued to collect photography, and just by chance he happened to collect work by Degas and Man Ray and all these famous photographers and artists of the time. And little did he know at the time he was building a historical collection of images that has significant historical and cultural value as well. So are there going to be historians in the future that go back and look at the Hive blockchain as historical anthropologists, if such a occupation exists, and go, right, this bunch of artists, they were part of the tokenization movement of art, which, as far as I'm aware, I haven't seen any articles about this sort of stuff in any published art journal or anything like that. It's truly this sort of avant-garde region of digitizing artwork, and it's a completely new media, and that's evident in the styles of a lot of these artists that are posting in here, where it's digital images, but it's moving picture. It's got all the consistencies of the new media movement that sort of started to happen in the 90s and 80s in art, computer generated stuff. So there's a lot of interesting stuff going on here beyond the mere fact of, look at this is another way that artists can get paid.
Absolutely. And I think if it inspires people, see, for me, it's the egalitarian nature of all this, right? There's someone out there is an artist, and I think being an artist is something that you just know about yourself, right? I think there are artists out there who are stuck. Maybe they're agoraphobic, maybe they're in a wheelchair, I don't know their circumstances, but there are people that can't manage the logistics of art production, sale, all of that. Maybe they're terrible people with no people skills. They're not charismatic, they're ugly, who knows, right?
The other gateway is in the traditional art world. You've got curators and you've got galleries and you've got people that are going to look at your work and say, oh, I don't want that hanging in my gallery, or I don't think you're a good fit, or you won't agree to me taking a 60% commission on the works that you sell because they're on the wall in my gallery.
Yeah. There's no casting couch here, I guess. There's no twisted self-interest or abuse of power. It's literally apply, get yourself whitelisted, which, that's not an opinion thing. That's just, do you tick these boxes that we require? And more about the quality and authenticity of the work than anything else. And then let's go. You can get listed.
Yeah.
And now a hobbyist who might be limited by the fact that they're 10 and they're not allowed to work, or they might be limited by any number of other things, as long as they have an internet connection and the physical, the capacity to actually produce this stuff, and they know about it, they can list it, and they can actually make an income. And if you're prolific and if you're good as an artist, you can then have that residual coming through. And if you power that up, then great. Right? You power that up, or you can speculate yourself. Like I said, I'm pretty sure it was Magic Monk bought the Brian Imov's piece. You can then reinvest that into speculating on art that you like that other people have done. So I like it. There's a lot to like there. NFT Showroom. I think we're one bull run away from people looking at the gas fees on Ethereum and some of those more established ones and saying, look, I can't justify that.
Yeah, $7 to play one round of a game at current Ethereum prices, and some sort of semblance of semi-real time, under a minute. It feels wasteful. It feels like paying $7 every time you want to drive through the McDonald's and say, I want a burger. Okay, cool, you can have your burger, but that'll be a $7 transaction fee, please. Which is not the reality of it. But going back to Hive and the resource credits, you end up at a interesting calculation, I think, because Hive scales the amount of resource credits required for transactions depending on how busy the network is and all that sort of thing. It makes me wonder, if we have billions and billions of people using Hive in some future state, what would be your minimum viable product in order to do all the things you need to do if Hive was, this is completely optimistic and possibly unrealistic thinking, but if Hive was the world standard currency, everyone in the world was using it, governments, businesses, individuals, how much Hive would you need in order to have enough resource credits to be able to do anything on the network? And that's your digital cost of entry, that's your proof of existence, is by holding enough Hive to be able to be a voice that can speak up and say, hey, I'm me, I exist.
That's an interesting point. I think I probably only do in the fiat world only a handful of transactions every day, so there's no reason to assume that would be a large amount. But I obviously I do a great deal more Hive transactions than I do fiat transactions.
Yeah,
it's a good message. Well, I think there's so many different possibilities there. So I've just got past the 1,000 account creation tokens in my account. Not sure what to do with the Steamboat. Justin Sucks 01, Justin Sucks 02.
No one wants to buy them.
Yeah.
There's no way to transact them.
But there's, I think there's 600 or 700 of those. But yeah, 1,000 Hive account creation tokens. Now, they aren't transferable at the moment, although I could turn them into accounts and then sell the accounts. But what happens when, say down the track, somebody has a business idea that they so they got a website and they're going to use those accounts as use the chairs in a restaurant example. Originally, it was a case of, well, you have your own account and that's like a chair that you sit in to have your meal at home. But there's no reason that, and a lot of the online businesses now, a lot of the blockchain businesses are starting to move in this direction. There's no reason that a visitor needs to have their own account. They can just arrive, like at a restaurant, you sit in the restaurant's chair while you're there, and then when you leave, the chair stays. And so then obviously the site manages all the keys and what have you. And Splinterlands is doing that. I can't think off the top of my head who else is doing that, but we're looking after all the keys and stuff until you get to the point where you yourself want to take ownership, or we're going to permanently just keep it's just our chair, but every time you log in using your Facebook or whatever, we're going to write to the chain on your behalf, transact on your behalf.
Yeah, proxies.
But what happens when restaurants decide that they don't want to buy the chairs themselves, they just want to lease the chairs? Or they've got a business model that they're not sure it has legs. Well then, if I've got 1,000 account creation tokens and I've got 9 friends who also have 1,000 account creation tokens, we can
got a
provide
restaurant that can
service.
fit 9,000 people.
Well, we can then provide a service that we can say, look, we can get you 10,000 accounts that you can lease off us for however much a month or a week. And with those 10,000 accounts, you can actually have 50,000 customers, assuming that they come in for an hour a day. That's 10,000 accounts. You can comfortably seat 50,000 patrons to your restaurant because they're not staying all day. They're just staying for however long. They come in, do their daily whatever, and so you then don't have that overhead of, I'm not sure if this is a good business idea. Do I really want to buy all the chairs I need for my restaurant, or do I just want to lease them? And I think, hey, look, if that's the direction we're heading, then these account creation tokens are worth something. I mean, they're an asset that I can lease out, same as Splinterland cards or what have you. I don't imagine there'd be rentals on that NFT Showroom.
No. I mean, but you bring up an interesting point. If someone wants to host a virtual gallery of work and or a virtual exhibition, so to speak, and you want to feature all these historical works by all these, cutting-edge blockchain artists. How do you collect all of those works in one place at a single moment to display them? You say, oh, well, this one's in this person's collection, here we go. This one's in this other person's collection, here we go. It would be interesting to see a level of curated collections of work that are digital exhibitions. And, do you want to have your work in your collection visible for everyone to see, or do you want to buy work and leave no trace of that work having existed other than the transaction of Matt Clark bought this piece of work from this artist and it's whittled away in their collection? No one can remember what it looks like. No one remembers what it was. There's only the initial evidence of a piece of work was hung, purchased, put away in a dark room, hidden from the world, and one day we might see that again in an exhibition. I think that happens a lot in the traditional art world. Whereas here on the NFT showroom, you've got a system whereby you don't have that choice to say, I'm going to put that piece of work away and not let people see it because I bought it. Because that would be another way of, yes, collecting work, but also if I didn't want someone to see a particular artist's work, and this indeed did happen in many parts of the art world, you just buy every piece that an artist produced and you could destroy it. I mean, you can do that now with the NFT showroom.
Well, that's what ownership is, right? It's the ability to deprive other people of that, the use of that thing. Which is funny because one of the examples that I use with Hive, my elevator pitch, I guess, for blockchain in general is that, we've been saying for a long time that once something's on the internet, it's there permanently, but that's always been a threat until blockchain came along. So, Beyonce with your unflattering picture of the funny expression on her face, once that's there forever. And that's because there are so many multiple copies of it all over the world, and that people share it. Well, blockchain is that. Things can be permanent on the internet now, but now that's a promise rather than a threat. Like we can offer you that permanence, and now because there's permanence, there are structures that we can build. There are things that we could only do when we were certain, including trusting investment, trusting money to the net. There were things that we could only do once we knew that what we were posting could be permanent. It's not up to some guy in a server room somewhere to decide that he doesn't like that, or some thug with a gun to say no, you're taking that down. It's permanent. It doesn't matter what other people want. So that's very empowering. But I think it's funny that we start with the example of here's a photo that you simply can't. Once it's posted, there's the unflattering photo. You can't get rid of it. It's there for good. And I use that example then with Hive to say, now things can be there for good, but for good on the internet. And now we've come full circle to say, but you could buy all the NFTs of this, all the tokens, and then just burn them all.
It's a bit malicious and unrealistic.
It is.
There's likely to be a counter collector to say, no, this must be preserved, and then how does that inflate the value of that piece of work? I don't think we've got any polarizing artworks like that on the NFT showroom at the moment, but I'd love to see what it would take for an event like that to kick off, because it would be really fascinating to see, the art trade, because you've got Sotheby's or whatever it's called, and all these other Christie's, famous auction houses, and blah 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 blah. But at the end of the day, what's it like? What's it like for ordinary individuals to be introduced to this world of collecting artwork that they're priced out of that market? Whereas now you can go own a legitimately amazing piece of work that someone has poured their passion into, and as a result of pouring that passion into, there's a value to be found there.
And I think that's part of a story, and all of life is narrative, in a way. So say I did burn. Say that was my thing, where I buy art on NFT Showroom and I burn it all. What would be the value of that one piece that I didn't burn? Right? If you said, well, look, I bought this off Matt Clark, who's the maniacal art burner who buys things on the NFT Showroom and just burns them. You said, oh, look, here's this one thing that he didn't burn. Well, that's scarcity in and of itself, right? That's it's like if I sold you an alpha flesh golem, that would be a rare thing, because I'm pretty sure I've never sold one. I can't imagine that I would have. And so to say, well, look, I bought an alpha flesh golem off reseller. So what? I bought this alpha flesh golem off Matt Clark. Really? You got one out of Matt Clark? He loves them. What are you doing?
What did he need?
What did that cost you? What did it
cost him?
Yeah. Right. So it's all part of the story. That's people talking recently about the blurt airdrops. saying, oh, how quickly can I dump my blurred airdrop? And I thought, on one hand, yes, I get that, because that's been the way in the crypto space. Here's an airdrop. I'm trying to get eyeballs.
Consolidate this into what I want instead.
I'm now getting eyeballs on my token, and that's been the price you pay, is that you're going to face massive devaluation at first, at least. But the trade-off for that is that you get the extra attention and the extra eyeballs. And I think back when crypto was anonymous, that's completely valid that you just take in airdrops and dump them. But now I'm thinking, well, this stuff's auditable, right? So at some point, somebody is going to have a really cool project idea, and they're going to say, right, who do I drop these tokens on? Who's going to respect these tokens?
Who's not going to let them out?
Exactly. And I think, hey, look, I want to be in the column of never dumps stuff that he gets given for at least 12 months. And so that's my policy now. I don't care what it is. Blurt, pawn token. Not a big fan of pawn token, just the concept, but just from an ethics perspective. But that's fine. I'm not going to dump your token. I'm just going to hang on to it, do nothing for at least 12 months. That's my policy.
And see what happens with it.
Yeah, see what happens, right? And also, but give you time, because that's giving you time to then develop your idea, to hold the price at a particular level, rather than just have this constant sell pressure against your new startup innovation, whatever idea it is.
That's another interesting potential use case for NFT Showroom. As an artist, if you want to create something and give someone a gift, you tokenize it, you gift it to them, as opposed to having this expectation that it must be sold, it must be a commercial venture. So much of art is created on the basis of, I want to make something for someone, as opposed to, let's make this thing for profit. And I think that's where art is separated from capitalism, but there is a whole capitalistic world of art that we won't be going into today, because I'm getting hungry.
Yep,
We've entered a township.
We'll break for lunch.
We're going to have a break. We're going to eat lunch. We might be back with more, or we may not be.
I think we'll be back with more.
Might be.
All
right, guys.
Later.
Thanks for watching. If you made it this far, congratulations. We'll see you soon.
We are back.
We're back.
Fish and chips, and
we're sticking to in-car footage for the ride back.
Yep.
So you can see our lovely decrepit faces before they've aged.
This is the youngest I'll ever look.
So now you're older.
And now I'm. And
so am I.
You were saying about content?
Content, yeah. I saw a comment on someone's post the other day. I think it was on Acidio. Some people like to call him Acidio. Avoid names. If someone's watching this video, they'll know who they are. They said something along the lines of, I don't come to Hive for content. There's no good content on Hive. And I tend to agree with that statement to some extent. There's varied content on Hive, but what I know is not good content on Hive. It's content that's about Hive, which is kind of ironic, because I think that's what this conversation is going to turn into. But it's frustrated me for quite some time to see the front page of Hive constantly filled with information about Hive, or look at this great thing we're doing on Hive. And the point I always tend to bring up is, if I go to Reddit to go look at memes or something, I'm not on Reddit to go read about, oh look, the Reddit servers are performing accurately today, brilliant work. Or Reddit needs this function or this feature that it doesn't have. I'm on Reddit to go and engage with the society, the subculture, the community, whoever it is that I'm interested in engaging with. Not just sit there and see all this stuff about, oh look at Reddit, it's awesome, we've got a new server, look at me. How do you feel about that?
I guess devil's advocate is it's not just about the eyeballs that are going to see those posts, it's also about the rewards. And I think people who are advancing the conversation about Hive are being rewarded for having done so, whether they're posting about a GitHub, something they've done on GitHub, whether they're talking about a new idea that others want to support that idea and show that it's something that's popular. So I think that, and the fact that those people are then getting the rewards, if you're uploading content that's about Hive, that's written by somebody who's interested in Hive and knowledgeable, and probably are more likely to power that up or keep it powered up. Whereas if you've got a post from somebody who's good at a really interesting
knife making.
Yeah. Well,
Playing the flute.
Exactly. So that flautist will perhaps be more likely to cash it out. Now, I don't know whether that's a concern or whether that's, whether we need maybe a trending page, and that's something for the condensers. Then maybe we need a trending page that is more about what's getting comment engagement, for example. It shows that on the trending page rather than what's had the most rewards. The other option, and this is one that could probably occupy the rest of the drive home, is talking about removing posting rewards entirely, posting and curation rewards from the base layer, turn it into effectively just a staked for RC's token, with it being the base layer, and the only way to then acquire it is to buy it from somebody who's holding it, with all the inflation going to the holders and witnesses, or stakers and witnesses. That would then pave the way. I wouldn't want to see that, obviously, until SMTs are a thing, other communities are a thing, other front ends using plugins that give that functionality, they're a thing. I wouldn't want any of that. But I think a lot of people, and I know Taraz is a fan of this concept too. I think Taraz is a fan of this concept too. Correct me if I'm wrong, mate. But once we've got Hive as the backbone, with a whole lot of other niche tokens running off it, whether that's second layer or first layer, once we have that, I would be very keen to see that happening, where we simply don't have Hive posting or curation rewards anymore, and it's just something that you buy to stake or power down to sell. That would be my preference. Obviously, it would still do other things with it, but as far as the distribution mechanism, get rid of the rewards pool.
Does it stop becoming a utility token at that point? Because does that then disincentivize people to cease the creation of content on the platform itself?
Yes, so they'd then be pushed out to those second layer options. So that instead of, NFT Showroom gives us a good example of that. If NFT Showroom had its own token, swap.hive is it's a one-for-one with Hive, so it's not its own token. But if NFT Showroom had its own token, then you could post your art to NFT Showroom. You could then sell it there,
take the NFT token, and trade that for Hive.
If you wanted Hive, if you wanted Hive, or if you wanted to just cash that up, then you could just do it that way. And I think the value of Hive is the way it records those transactions, and I think it needed to, as an incubator phase, have those posting rewards and those curation rewards. But once there's enough distribution that way, I could really see, even if it's just gradual fade out, to the point where eventually you just say, no, I'm creating content, but instead of creating my niche content, because with Galen with his Pew Pew community, the shooting community, they could have their own front end, and he has Pew Pew tokens, and you just post to them, and they know what's good. And this is the joy of it, right? At the moment, Bernie Sanders, any number of other Wales, Freedom, Pumpkin, I'm not sure who's holding, I haven't had a look for a while at the top end, but they get to decide if I'm a good authority on pumpkins, or I could something that it's nothing really I specialise in.
But the other thing that I'm just commenting on to, listening to you talk about this, is the fact that the value I see in Hive is the value in sharing my content, being potentially rewarded for that content, and then being a part of that overarching community. And what my fear is with all these various front ends, if Hive were to be just an operating system for the internet of all these various communities, is I need to go to 15 different places to see things about 15 different types of content, and my fear is that something like that could fragment, splinter the community.
The current
beyond what it is.
Absolutely.
The
current community, yes. The current community is just not big enough to handle needing to go to all sorts of different front ends. Absolutely agree. I think that's where you can take existing communities and tap into them. So we'll take for archery, for example. I don't know why I just thought of archery, but say you're into archery, you're all about the strings, the bows, targets, the ballistic qualities of the arrows in flight, all of that stuff. Now, if you come to Hive as it is and you start posting about archery stuff, you might get ignored. You might get viewed by one of the bigger, or several of the bigger whales. You get lucky. But they then get to decide whether you're credible, which is silly because you know more about archery than they do.
I know nothing about archery.
Right, and you've got enough stake to decide up or down whether an archery post is, is going to be rewarded. And it's not just about the quality of how many words or pictures. The quality of the post is in the, part of the quality of the post is in the expertise of the poster, of the author, right? So you get the world's best archer arrives and he posts a brilliant piece about archery and he's being assessed by people who know nothing about archery and then given these credibility tokens. But these credibility tokens is really what Hive is, right? It's just, that's the way it works, is you then have the option to then spend that credibility to assign credibility to others. It's like a fountain, right?
It's a trustless ecosystem.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure what you're saying here is where the information
So
go.
I'm going to upvote this person because he knows what he's talking about, because he's provided, he knows where it's at, and he knows stuff, and he's put the work in, and that's going to that. I want him to decide what's credible as well. I want his helping me decide what's credible from now on. So I'm going to upvote him, and he has stayed.
Meanwhile, the world's second best archer comes along and says, "No, that's rubbish. Arrows don't fly that way. They fly this other way." I disagree, good sir. And they come along and say, "No, I can't stand to see this being rewarded." And then play the other side of the devil's advocate.
Yeah. And this is the flaw at the moment, is that the umpires, the referees who are up and down voting, don't necessarily know about archery. So I would rather say, right, rather than trying to find or recruit people who are into archery and then try to have them continue to post at the face of this ignorance, which is what it is, right? I'm ignorant of the ins and outs of archery. I'm not qualified to decide whether that guy's credible.
I need to stop you there and say that one of the tags on this post must be archery as a result.
You're right.
And then we'll see whether or not anyone watches the video, whether we find any expert archers out there on the platform who can, tell us whether or not we're right about archery.
Well, this is the thing, right? So there's somewhere out there is that archer. Now he's also in a different group. This is he's interested in crypto and he's interested in archery. He's in a different group, which is all about archery. And they're a forum, and they have members and mods and admins, and there's 10,000 people who regularly contribute to this archery forum. Right? Now, I want him to go and approach the admins or the devs, the owner of that site, that forum, and say, "Hey, look, let's tokenize conversation here with an NFT token." Rather than trying to fragment our existing community, we go and say, "Hey, we can actually make this conversation that you're having, we can quantify it, we can tokenize it, we can assign it some value." Well, not even assign it some value. We can give it the chance for you guys to assign it value, and then it will just be credibility tokens. And it doesn't matter if Bernie Sanders comes and says, "Hey, I'm posting about archery now because and if
I've
you're
been a closet archer this whole time."
Yeah, well, hey, look, by all means, if you've got credibility in the archery world and you know what you're talking about, then great, you'll get some archery tokens. But if you don't, then they will just go, "It doesn't matter how big your hive stake is. I don't care how big a whale you are. If you
know nothing about archery."
Yeah, exactly. And if you want that credibility of archery tokens, then you're going to need to buy them off people who've earned them, right? And if you've got no interest in archery, why would you buy them? There's literally zero incentive. It's not like you're going to curate well because you don't know anything about archery. Those tokens then only become valuable to people who are interested in archery, who are credible in archery, and people who want to award other people credibility. I think if you take the money side out of things and just see these as credibility tokens, then the fact that everything's on Hive and your credibility in archery is just as good as my credibility in homebrewing, which is just as good as Bernie Sanders' credibility in, I don't know, being an arsehole. Right? We've just got a big claim, didn't we?
That's fine.
Then ultimately, just edit that bit out.
No, it's staying in. But the other side of the coin, Hun's law terrifyingly intended, is that to bring money back into it, how much does this archery community cost to host this archery community? And by having it hosted on blockchain and multi-purpose and doing all this other stuff as well, how useful does that then make Hive, and how greatly rather does it then disrupt traditional web hosting, which is, you've got this site, great, you need to pay someone to host it, you need a domain name where you could just be archery.hive or whatever, and it's all hosted on a centralized from a URL point of view.
Yep.
So if you want to know about skateboards, you want to know what people on Hive think about skateboards, you can go to skateboards.hive. Whatever.
Yep.
Or pastime, profession.
That could work. I think there's a level of territoriality too that comes with it. So rather than trying to move an existing archery community off their forum, where they all know each other, they've got the same usernames they've had for years, they've got the same avatar, rather than trying to move them off there and try to re-establish all those relationships, why not add a widget on their site where you just say, well, look, you guys had Kudos, or you had Magic Internet Token, what's the
reputation,
or whatever the metric,
what it's called on
and there's an appetite for that, right? These they almost all have them.
Gamification.
Because there's an appetite for that. People want those things. So if we come along and say, hey, look, for a nominal fee, you buy you stake some Hive, you power it up. For that, you can then run your own token, your own credibility token, that can be bought and sold on these different markets. People just need to arrive and say interesting things in your forum that are true and credible. They will then get upvotes from that community, and they can then cash those out. Others who want to be credible, who want to
redeem them for titles.
Yeah, well, there's all sorts of possibilities. But just on a straight up token perspective, I could just see a bow manufacturer saying, well, hey, look, we want to upvote stuff where people say positive things or just genuine things about our bows. And you can say that's money contaminating things, but that's what happens at the moment with advertising anyway.
Yeah, but that symbiotic relationship between people who are using something and people who are writing on behalf of the companies about that something.
Exactly.
That's been an issue in all sorts of review media in the past. You've got car reviewers, video game reviewers, everything.
And I guess this is where Splinterlands did that with early posts about Splinterlands. Hey, we've got our stake here. We'll upvote posts about this game. Quality posts, and other projects are doing that. Crypto Brewmaster's doing that. It works for a whole lot of reasons. Even Gold Matters with his Mene stuff. I like to support that because I know that this is an organisation that I'll upload his posts from time to time, because this is an organisation that's using this world for real world commerce, and I guarantee you they're not cashing out Hive for a cheap, for a quick buck. They're looking to power it up so they can maintain that position of dominance, where if you do write stuff about Mene jewellery, here's a bit of an upvote for you.
Yeah, and they're persistent and they're passionate.
Yep.
And that shows in everything. You go follow different Gold Matters on Instagram, like I do.
Yep.
Same stuff, the same passion, the same persistence. People, to some extent, reward that on the present day on the Hive blockchain, where there's the reward for the persistence, the passion, and there's another. Our friend Galen, he uses it 3 Ps. I think it's passion, persistence. Can't remember the last one. If he watches this, he'll probably tell me. I'll ask him. But at the risk of becoming an internet meme lord at this point, you got to have the PP. You got to have power. Oh my heart. Persistence, passion. I was accelerating, so I was thinking about power. But
I feel like the token's trying to do two things at the moment, right? It's trying to be a currency, it's trying to be a valuable currency, and it's also trying to be a credibility token. This guy knows what he's talking about token. Proof of brain, is virtually the same as proof of authority, proof of
Identity.
yeah, proof
Individualism.
of knowledgeability. And I don't think it's doing a good job of being a credibility token when credibility sits in these different sub areas. There's no one credible. I say, oh, who's the most credible person you know? What do you mean? Like with blockchain stuff, or with like professional stuff, or do you mean who's the most credible photographer that I know? Like what subgenre? And that's what we need to get at with SMTs. To say, right, if we really want to be tokenizing credibility, then we can't just have one big topic, which is what Hive is at the moment. It's just one big one.
I mean, you can still have that to some extent. If I use the Reddit top or Reddit trending page as an example,
Yep.
Someday something from funny will make it there, but then someday something from some obscure subreddit like I don't know, theoretical moon skateboarders will hit the front page of Reddit because they've come up with the physics and viability of skateboarding on the moon.
Yeah.
There could be some fascinating or witty insight into why skateboarding on the moon is the next big industry to take off. But you still need those, whoa, that came out of nowhere sort of pieces of information that you want to be exposed to.
True, and you do lose that, I think, in what I'm talking about, because we're talking about more descending into tribalism, I guess, instead of everybody being in one big group. We've got tribalism. I think that's what the internet is now. That's what everybody knows.
And you run into the realm of, whoa, this subreddit is my safe space. This community is my safe space.
Yeah.
The moment I go outside of that community, there's all these dissenting voices that say, no, you're wrong. Red is blue, blue is red, sky is orange.
But if that's their safe space, let's leave them there. Let's leave them on their archery forum. But there's just a new, interface there, a new addition to the interface, where the owner is being tapped on the shoulder by one of his users, who's the archery guy we talked about earlier. He's not getting Hive tokens for his archery posts because none of the whales know anything about archery. He's tapped the forum owner on the shoulder and said, hey, look, there's this new SMT thing, just fill out a web form, right? And it's only fairly minimal expense. I've actually got plenty of RCs I can delegate, or I can stake it in your account name or whatever else. We come to some sort of an arrangement, but then we can tokenize this entire conversation on the forum, and
we can reward each other.
And you can then, as the site owner, you can have a big stack of these coins staked, tokens staked, and you can then say, right, this guy knows what he's talking about, and then people can actually see this as something that's credible, and they can look at a post about it, a post in the forum, and say, oh wow, this guy's got not just 30 upvotes, who are those sock puppets, whatever, but he's actually made a decent amount of the credibility tokens. People know what he's talking about. This is an article that I can rely on, that I can trust, and this is also somebody that I want to, impress or inspire with my response. This is worthwhile. And then instead of trying to bring new people to Hive and trying to explain what it is and how it works, and all of that stuff, the SMTs can be taken care of by the forum owner, manager, and if he doesn't do it, the other archery forum's going to do it, and he's going to lose people to that.
It's one or the other.
Yeah. This is quite steep down here, so
it is quite steep, the area of road we're about to drive down. And though you guys can't see it, there's a fog, there's a rain. As Australians, we're not used to these things, so we'll just ease on the brakes a little bit. So we have trucks coming out. See them in our rear view mirror. He is crawling.
He's absolutely crawling. I don't blame him if he's got heavy stuff in there. So that's my thinking. Is I'm looking forward to that, coming to the point where we're not rewarding stuff on the base layer. I can see that happening, just a gradual change, less and less, until eventually there'll be that, no, that's it now, draw a line under it. If you want Hive, you need to buy it. And I think that'll do obviously wonders for the price. Account creation tokens, all of that. There's plenty of stuff that you can use RCs for still. I think once that becomes the backbone and then everything else is tokenized on top of that.
I think the other important thing to mention is that people who started using this as a platform, not just for the reward, but because it is indeed a platform, would continue to engage and add content to that platform because they have built that into their daily ritual, they built that into their effort. It's essentially their digital home.
Yeah.
They've carved out a place for them. You know, if they're getting no reward posting on other platforms, but they're still getting the eyeballs, as a creator, eyeballs are what you care about.
Yeah, and look, I mean, there's still room for a tipping option there as well. You can say, I like what you're saying, I'm gonna tip you some of mine, but not that draw on the rewards pool that we've had so far. It's great for distribution, and it's been great, and I'm not in any rush to get rid of it, but I would like to know that that's the end goal at some point.
And I think it just triggered off another thought in my mind as well. It's, you know, if we look at the sun hitting the land as a value proposition, the farmer's going to want that land because a certain amount of sun hits that land and he can grow some crops there. But what if someone else wants to do something else with that land? What is the farmer going to do? What I'm getting at is the sun is shining on a great plain. Everyone's on that plain together right now, whereas we haven't started to carve up those lots like you would in a traditional real estate model or that sort of thing, where you've got this prosperous plain out in front of you with the sun beaming down upon it, and it's owned by one authority or one person. Yes, one person might own a great deal of that sun-drenched plain, but other people want to do something with it, and you can't do everything you want with all that sun plain that you have. That farmland is only as useful to you as it can be with your equipment and your knowledge. If you want to lease that land to someone else, do it. If you want to sell that land to someone else, do it. I think the key concept is it's your land to do with what you please once you've got that stake.
Yep.
And whether someone comes in and no one can take your stake, it's in dispute, it's in it's in deliberation, I guess, some sort of purgatory for those 7 days. So another thing I want to say is just quickly on the topic of downvotes is every time you downvote another piece of content on the chain, you're rewarding every other piece of content. Because that downvote you make goes back into the reward pool and is redistributed to everyone else. So it's not an attack on you, it's a gift to everyone else. You know?
No, and I've said this before. I have uploaded at $1, and I'm supposed to be at $1, and I've uploaded it. But if I saw that same post at $40, I'd downvote it. Because it's under rewarded at $1, but it's over rewarded at 40.
Yeah.
And I think that's where people need to step back and say, okay, I understand now. It's not about me personally. It's not about me. This person dislikes me, or even dislikes the work. It's just they believe this post is under rewarded, which is the only reason you upload something if it's under rewarded.
Yep.
And they believe the post is over rewarded, which they download it. Not a criticism. It's not saying, I want you to suffer and burn and die. It's simply...
Unless, of course, someone says that in the comments.
Well, yeah, they're welcome to add that in the comments, but I think unless they actually make that comment, maybe just assume that they believe that the current post is over rewarded. I mean, as the author, of course, every post is under rewarded.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We all agree every post I've done has been under rewarded, but it's not up to the author, it's up to the curators. And if the author wants it to be up to them, then they need to make sure that they're not cashing out. That's the kicker, isn't it? You want to decide what's under and over rewarded. If you want that level of influence, that level of credibility, then you need to make sure that you're safeguarding your credibility tokens, which is its own type of credibility. I was there early enough. I was smart enough to know that this thing was going to go gangbusters. I knew that this was going to be good. I knew it was going to be a thing. That's sort of credibility self-selection right there.
And as others grow on the platform alongside you, it's your choice. Where do you want to give something up now, and take something off the table, or do you want to overtake other stakeholders, or do you want to allow yourself to not be in that list of high stakeholders? And I think it's something that's always interested me, and I know the data is out there, is for all those creators that do take stuff off the table, it's a very big what if, as we don't know the answer to this. What if they took everything off the table and they just kept creating incredible content? Would that content still be rewarded on the basis of it being incredible, or would the community then say, no, you're taking too much off the table, we're going to stop rewarding you?
I guess we can't know.
No one's done that, really.
Yeah.
That, or, you know, it may be a self-fulfilling prophecy where we're not seeing that content because that person is nearly taking it off the table, that, you know, they're getting paid, you know, for half a Hive post. But they're taking that half a Hive off, but it might be something that's better than any of the content I've ever seen in any publication.
Yeah. Well, we've had some pretty high-profile people arrive, and they've left again because they haven't had any real engagement.
Yeah, and it can end up feeling sometimes like people are just talking to an empty room.
Yeah.
I guess that's the other form of.
In the meantime, you see somebody who's otherwise unremarkable who seems to have everybody's attention. And I can get why you would then say, well, this is rubbish. But if you just look at it on a post-to-post basis, then you'd say, well, my post was better than his post. But if he's been here 3 years and he's cultivated that audience, and that audience is, you know, it might seem of little value to you, but it might be an instalment in an ongoing saga that people are gripped by, well, then, you know, let's not look at it on a post-to-post basis. Yeah, it's easy to, again, every author believes that every one of their posts is under-rewarded, and
I'm yet to see an author downvote one of their own posts in receiving too many rewards.
yeah,
And I think there's the other element of there's that function on the chain as well around you can set the max number of rewards that you want to accept for a post. Yeah, there's a variable in the blockchain that is set by default basically to unlimited. If you were to accept it, you see it on some of the block explorers. You know, XYZ posted XYZ, max reward XYZ.
okay,
A lot of the front ends, I don't know if all the front ends broadcast that
yeah,
information in their block transactions. I don't know if it's a necessary part of the chain, but I've seen it.
yeah,
If
okay.
anyone knows how it works, let us know.
Can you set a minimum reward for your post?
I don't think so. But you can definitely set a maximum.
Okay.
So it would be interesting to see, you know, if we were to say, right, this is the maximum reward I'm willing to accept for this publication,
Yeah,
to see whether or not people will achieve that,
yeah,
or then use that as a potential measure of success. And then, you know, just like with all elements of creation or value add, there's always a race to the bottom. Someone's going to do it for less.
yeah. Well, as long as they can, right? As long as they have the
It's
skills.
sustainable. And even sometimes when it's not sustainable, I continue doing that.
Yeah. Well, I think we might just about call it here. It's been a good chat.
Has.
Thanks for joining me, Steve. Thanks for joining us, audience.
Thanks for trusting me, driving you all around. And we might do something like this again. We might not.
I enjoyed it immensely. I hope you did too. And yeah, I think we'll do it again.
Maybe. We'll see.
Cheers. Bye.